我
of
跟
this
小鱼
player.
认识是在14年的世锦赛，然后就那时候我们2个都是选手去参加比赛。那次我表现蛮不好，就16强，然后小鱼那次拿第2名嘛。反正就从那之后就开始有联络，然后之后小鱼刚好他们战队有办一个比赛，反正就在15年的时候，他们有邀请我去打那个比赛，所以就是跟小鱼就是这些时候认识的。然后我觉得小鱼是个蛮喜欢四处玩跟人聊天的人吧，他对蛮多历史跟文化都蛮熟的，然后也蛮了解一些其他国家的状况，我觉得还蛮有趣的。
I met Tidler 2 years ago, about 2 years ago in France, when we were participating in a tournament together. He was the only Chinese player there, I think. And yeah, we just talked for a few minutes and then we exchanged Skype. And then in the next 2 years we talked from time to time, not too much, but we talked sometimes on Skype. And then yeah, he just asked me a few weeks ago to join him in the tournament. I think Tidler is a very calm and understanding personality. He knows, I think he has a lot of knowledge about how the world works. I really like the calm of his personality, and yeah, he seems like a great guy to work with.
A very calm person, very knowledgeable, very worldly. I personally did not know these things about Tidler, but it makes a lot of sense. He's very cool under pressure. And of course, any knowledge helps when you get to high levels of Hearthstone. It just so happens this guy knows a lot about the world. Maybe he knows a lot about his opponents as well.
Certainly took a break from Hearthstone for a while. It's nice to see him back. He said he just wanted to entertain the viewers, and he's going to be kicking things off with his Paladin. He is 1-2 with his Paladin at the moment. He faced Kazakus Mage and beat that, but he has lost to Evolve Shaman and both Quest Warrior as well. Of course, it is difficult to predict what your opponent's going to be bringing blind, so it's hard to counter, because once you've seen the player approach the stage, you've already chosen your deck as well. But on the side for RNG is going to be Leaoh, who's kicking things off, and his teammates were even more ecstatic about him being on the team. They were saying, actually, sometimes we think we don't even need to get out of bed in the morning. We think Leaoh would be able to just get a victory himself.
Yeah, Leaoh, a very, very well-renowned player on the Chinese Hearthstone server. And he will be piloting the Druid. So we have seen Druid from time to time. It has had a bit of mixed results because it can be pretty hard countered by decks just like Paladin.
Yeah, Druid certainly hasn't done as well as we thought it was going to do in this tournament so far. The win rate less than even 40%, I think, at the moment.
Yeah.
We have seen Leaoh play Jade Druid twice already. He did beat a Paladin already as well, so maybe that will give him a little bit of hope, but certainly Paladin versus Druid going into that matchup, if you can get the early start with a Murloc Paladin, it can just run out of control and you can end up losing on turn 5 if you're the Druid, if things go very badly. But if you can get to those later stages, get to your Spreading Plagues, for example, then there is still a chance that maybe you'll be able to take down this Paladin.
The Druid does have some ability to fight against the board in the early turns. Leaoh's elected for a couple copies of Galaka Crawler in this deck as opposed to Hungry Crab, so it will not be lining up quite as well against this Paladin as it would against Zoo Warlock or Rogue, for instance. But still, find a couple early copies of Wrath while you're still able to ramp with Wild Growth, potentially Mire Keeper. You can combat the early board state just a little bit, and there is always that failure rate from Murloc Paladin, and this is an interesting version of Murloc Paladin for Team Celestial. It's a Corpse Taker, Storm Watcher, plus Cold Light Seers variant, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, myself and Derek. I'm not partial to this build over a more standard build of Murloc Paladin, but we did see one game in particular for Tidler that this deck just worked beautifully.
Yeah, when it works, but when you draw that Stormwatcher early on, then you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't put it in my deck. It's risk and reward, like many things are in Hearthstone. We did see Tom actually pilot this deck as well and beat a Big Druid with it. So I guess it's similar, but Big Druid has maybe less options than the Jade Druid does in terms of early combating the board. This is certainly going to be an interesting one and a perfect way to kick off the day as well. As we mentioned, both of these teams are competing for that #1 seed. If RNG win, they guarantee themselves first seed. If Celestial win, well, they'll be looking at Evolution's results later on today.
Things get a little bit interesting if Celestial can take this one down. With this start from Tidler, there's just about nothing that he can't do.
Yeah, and I like the decision just to keep everything as well there. I mean, just looking at the hand, it's actually really filthy. Now you've got Tyrion as well for the late game, if it even gets there. So you're just hoping your opponent doesn't have the Wrath, which is just able to deal with the Tidequill or the Rockball Hunter, for example. And we can see Leaoh doesn't have any of that early ramp as well. Of course, he has Nourish, which is going to be great on turn 5. But you want to be picking up that Wild Growth nice and early on.
Yeah, Leo's hand just looking a bit slow. If you were up against, I don't know, any other mid-range matchup up against another Jade Druid, for instance, or a Warrior, this would be a fine start, but you cannot afford to miss those early turns. He is going to pick up that Wrath off the top, however. This is going to make things significantly easier. Now he doesn't have to worry about the Rock Pool buff coming down next turn. Still doesn't have anything to do on turn 3, but this may get him through to that turn 4.
Yeah, I mean, that stops the craziness happening where you're just dying on turn 5, and you're not going to get Rockball Hunter into Murloc War Leader, into another Murloc War Leader, and then suddenly you're facing, what, 20 damage or something ridiculous. So Leaoh will be really happy about that turn, but he still needs to find a little bit of ramp. Spreading Plague is a nice pickup. Certainly if your opponent does go wide, then you're going to be able to just toss all those Scarabs onto the board, but we are seeing people more and more play around Spreading Plague the further we get into this meta.
Yeah, and Tiddler's deck, more so than the average Murloc Paladin, is maybe even a little bit better positioned to do that, because you do have Corpse Taker with Wind Fury. If you're able to buff up the Corpse Taker, then that can take out 2 Scarabs with just that single minion. So the deck is a little bit more all-in on early game. It's a little bit more aggressive than the average Murloc Paladin, but it does actually respond quite well to a Spreading Plague. And it is just going to be a hero power pass for Leaoh. And with that second Corpse Taker pickup, I would think we're going to be seeing a coin Corpse Taker here for Tiddler. So much aggressive potential.
Yeah, there is a world where you want to keep your Murloc alive, I guess. If you had a War Leader in your hand, then you might play the Cold Light Seer. But the fact that you've not drawn that Stormwatcher, I mean, just get it out now, just in case you have that one in whatever, just to draw the Stormwatcher, and it ruins your entire game plan.
Yeah, it's like if you got Pirates in your hand and you're thinking, well, I could play this now, it's pretty good, and then I wouldn't run the risk of drawing patches going forward. So, I mean, you can still draw Stormwatcher, of course, but you want that Wind Fury effect immediately, and when you pick up Blessing of Kings off the top, now suddenly this is 16 damage on board, if Tiddler wanted it with the Blessing on the Corpse Taker, but it's very likely that he's going to have that option next turn as well, or even just the Rallying Blade for the buffs, because both the Corpse Takers have Divine Shield.
Yeah, this is when the kind of Corpse Taker build can just absolutely show its prowess, and now you've got the Blessing of Kings as well. Like, you don't need to use it maybe until you have lethal. For example, he could have used it that turn. Like, a lot of people would have just been like, oh my god, like, this is so much damage. But
that's crazy.
In the event that there is some sort of removal, like a Naturalize, I mean, we've seen most of Leo's deck, I think, maybe even 29 out of 30 cards. But certainly, there have been Naturalizers being run in a few big Druids nowadays. So, something worth considering, perhaps. But I still like just going a little bit wide here. You're not going into your Spreading Plague turn just yet.
Now Leo's in a bit of a tough position, actually. This swipe is kind of underwhelming. You can't clear off either Corpse Taker even with swipe. You're going to leave one up. But that's just about as good as it gets for Leaoh.
Look at the amount of damage here as well. And what answer does Leaoh have now? He's got a Jade Behemoth. That's pretty much all that's going to be putting in the way. And then even if you do that, you are just dead.
He is just dead.
He is just dead. Spreading Plague's not going to save you. Jade Behemoth isn't going to save you. And Tiddler, very quickly on turn 6, is going to be winning this game.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This Paladin deck, it's a little bit more inconsistent. You need to find the pieces in the right order, but when you do, suddenly you just have 14 damage from a 4-drop. Game number 1, very fast. Over to Tiddler and the Paladin. Now RNG will have to try and counter this deck with what they have remaining. Their Priest and their Rogue have been banned. Their Druid is now out of the way. So we have seen from them Warlock, Warrior, and Mage are the only 3 remaining decks that we have seen. They still have, of course, the Hunter and the Shaman that they could bring out.
Yeah, certainly the only thing that actually they've beaten Paladin with has been their Rogue. They have lost with their Quest Warrior against Paladin. So maybe they'll go for something like a ZOO. Maybe the discard lock is going to start making an appearance again, and it is going to be ByZa who's taking the seat. So maybe that is an indication that we might be seeing that discard lock. The more I see this discard lock, the more I like it. I was really critical of it when I first saw it, and I was saying it's really janky. You're relying so much on the fortune and the luck of the draw and all of that. But honestly, ByZa has been kind of piloting it perfectly. And I know that's very easy when you draw top deck 4 into 5, but she's certainly been enjoying herself with this deck.
Yeah, but she's also used the Warlock and the Rogue as well, so it could...
对颜值担当不用说了，然后颜值高，炉石打得又好，万千少男心中偶像。发微博感觉只用发他图就行了，把我们俩一 P 当个背景板，完美。然后微博回复量就够了。我们会尽力打的，然后争取不让白泽小姐姐出场，到时候让你们失望一下。你们估计这次世界杯看不到她了。我们白泽小姐姐，大家不要看平常很高冷，其实是很有少女心的人。你们可以研究她的胡萝卜和她的哈利波特海格威背包，给大家爆个小料，就这样。
白泽的话是我觉得圈内非常有创意的一位女性牌手，不止牌打得好，人长得漂亮，而且对我还有知遇之恩。 所以说是女神，
你这么说不太合适，我只能这样说了。不过，是，李尬的说的对。
Well, I don't know here, Dan. It sounds like these guys, maybe they're crushing on ByZa just a little bit.
Might be a little crush. I mean, I'm more interested about the Harry Potter backpack, to be honest. I don't know where they've got that from. It sounds absolutely amazing. Almost like a rip-off of a
very popular children's
novel.
book.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? It is going to be the Warlock for ByZa.
It is going to be this discard lock. Currently has a 3-1 record with ByZa. She's beaten Rogue, she's beaten Zoos, and she has lost to a ZOO as well. So yet to face a Murloc Paladin with this deck, but certainly does have the potential to combat the early pressure of the Murloc Paladin. But, you know, if those Corpse Takers are found on turn 3 and 4 again by Tidler, that might be enough to run away with it here.
Yeah, this is not what I think I personally would have queued. They have a Taunt Warrior in the mix as well, which has, in this tournament, performed rather well against Murloc Paladin. I may have gone with that, but ByZa knows this Warlock deck better than just about anybody else, so I certainly don't fault her for queuing it here, and it is just going to be easier for her to get an aggressive start than it is for Tidler. Tidler requires the right sequence of minions that then balance each other, that synergize with each other. ByZa just has strict 1-mana 3/2s.
The trouble with, I guess, queuing Quest Warrior is Leaoh has already played, and he's been the one who has been playing the Quest Warrior that entire time, and if he was losing to Murloc Paladin previously, maybe they were a little bit scared. And well, this is the opposite side of the spectrum now for Celestial, where the Stormwatcher is drawn into your hand early on. I believe there is just the one, right? You usually just run one, yeah.
Just one copy.
So now those Corpse Takers aren't going to have as much value as they had in the previous game.
Yeah, now the inconsistencies for this deck are really showing through. And this is not a matchup where you can falter, but the Rockpool Hunter is the single best draw in the deck for Tidler right here.
Yeah, I mean, it does allow him to clear off one of these Flame Imps, but wow, that's an aggressive stance, and I don't really blame him forcing your opponent to make the trades instead. But it does mean that ByZa can just plop a Voidwalker in the way here, which is going to soak up a little bit of damage.
Yeah, I like the double trades. Don't want to get punished by second Rockpool or by Murloc Warleader off the top. There would have been second Rockpool.
Wow. Yeah, really well played by ByZa, just making sure that she knows what her opponent's outs are. And now she's got a captain as well that can buff up both of these pirates on the board, or a second one if you want. This could slowly get out of control because we've just seen Tidler top deck 2 Rockpool Hunters that keep him in this game. If he top decks one of his big minions, there's going to be so much power on the board now for ByZa.
All right, that's a pretty good draw as well. It'll allow him to get through to the captain on the next turn, but if ByZa drops down the second captain, then suddenly the blade doesn't kill either. And Baiza doing a fantastic job of just keeping Tiddler off the board. She saw what happened in the last game. Blessing of Kings came down, and game was just over. So keep the board clear. You may be sacrificing some damage. You may be making some unfortunate trades, but she will just win the game if she can keep Tiddler from developing any minions.
I mean, she's got the damage to win the game next turn with the Doom Guard coming out, and unless anything significant is drawn, which it isn't, that is just gonna be game.
This is a...
Yeah, this is gonna be a quick series, I feel. If we're going down this route.
I mean, we may be going to 5 games, but they're all gonna be 5-minute games, so...
Well, both of these players playing this very quickly as well. They clearly know the matchup. But the concede now for Tiddler, he knows there's nothing that he can do. Even without knowing the Doom Guard in the hand for Baiza, he is so far behind at that point.
Yeah, his start was just very, very poor. Would have needed almost a mirror of his start from the previous game to keep up with the double Flame Imp opener from Baiza. And now, Team Celestial will have to counter this Warlock. It is a rather strange, discard-oriented Zoo Warlock, but it is still Zoo Warlock at heart, which means it's fast, it has great mid to late game, and it's going to be Mitsuhide up to bat, trying to get this Warlock out of there. He has been piloting his own Zoo Warlock very, very effectively in the last couple of days. But Team Celestial has 8 decks that we have seen. Their Priest is, of course, been banned every time. So we can see the full scope of decks that they have access to.
Yeah, Mitsuhide didn't have the best of starts to this tournament. Similarly to Celestial, to be honest. I think he was 0-3 in his own personal performances. And then suddenly he's turned that around with the use of that Zoo that you've said. He's 3-2 with his Zoo deck at the moment, but he has played Rogue and Hunter as well, but lost both games with those. But he is going to try his hand at the Rogue once again. It does queue up fairly well into this Zoolock. And then it begs the question, if he does get the victory, of how is my opponent actually going to be able to counter this deck? And then they have the follow-up next turn. If they don't actually get the win here, they can just use a Zoo of their own, take that 50-50, and then hope that they can just carry it through.
Yeah, Celestial are in the advantageous position right now because they won game number 1. They have the counter ability to get down to game number 5 and have that counter available. So if all goes according to plan, Celestial is in a good spot here, but the Rogue up against the Warlock is not a straightforward victory for the Rogue. I'd say it's slightly favored, but the Warlock, again, you know, if Baiza just draws KylinS, if she's got double Flame Imp opener on coin again, then this is going to be really hard for Mitsuhide to win still.
I mean, just going back to those first 2 games as well, I think Tiddler would have quite liked to have swapped those starts, because you can have a fairly bad start against a Druid and still be able to push enough damage. Like, those Rockball Hunters would have done a lot of work. And then that Corpse Taker, those turns would have been amazing against the Warlock. But instead, he's now sitting down and he can just mill over. At least he's able to get 1 victory. As Baiza doesn't find that KylinS, and neither does Mitsuhide. So we are going to get just a fairly bog-standard game to start with. And that's what I love, Gura. I love a box-standard game of Hearthstone.
I love a no KylinS game of Hearthstone, because that's pretty much every game I play, even when I have KylinS in my deck. But just looking at these starts, Mitsuhide is, I feel, just a little bit stronger in the opener, especially since Baiza has pretty much... She has to play Howl Fiend on 3. It challenges on board incredibly well, but now she's going to lose potentially both of her Doom Guards as a result. That's severely going to cut into her mid-game.
Oh, and patches as well. That's just gone from bad to worse. And, you know, if a Howl Fiend does come down, Mitsuhide can have a lot of fun, to be honest, by just starting to discard some of these cards. You can just plop a Tar Creeper on the board just to block off some damage. And then the following turn, you've got, what, SI7 Agent. You can Shadow Step it back as well later, so deal even more damage to the Howl Fiend. Just discard cards here, there, and everywhere.
See, that's the thing. I never want to play a card that means that my opponent is going to be having more fun.
More fun than I am. I want to be having the most fun.
I want to be having the fun. And Howl Fiend just... If you don't have Silverware Golems in hand, I'm not having fun.
I suppose Baiza had fun when she got KylinS into Howl Fiend and then discarded everything.
That looked fun.
Then drew into perfect cards, but perhaps less fun in this situation.
I mean, still, a 3/6 on board is formidable. It's more than Mitsuhide can deal with right now. It's going to take him a couple of turns, and even if Baiza discards a couple of cards, maybe she can leverage this board lead.
Yeah, maybe if she draws into Malkazar's Imp next turn or something like that, then maybe she'll be in a really good position. I quite I quite like the Tar Creeper here, though. It stops the Halfing being able to push any damage to face. It's an awkward trade, and it means next turn you have some great synergy with your SI7 agents as well, potentially to finish off the Halfiend and discard quite a few cards from your opponent. Discarding one first, though, Mitsuhide. He's already playing the discarding game, and that's bye-bye to Doomguard number 1.
It's a great discard for Mitsuhide, especially coming up on turn 5. VS's is going to want access to at least one of these Doom Guards.
And that Crystal Weaver, unfortunately, doesn't help getting through this Tar Creeper.
No, it's a nice draw, but the Halfiend still doesn't have enough attack just to clean up the Tar Creeper. You can, of course, go for the Crystal Weaver into the Tar Creeper on the next turn.
Yeah, if the Halfiend survives, like Crystal Weaver plus Patches next turn, would sort him out. It would sort him out. Get off my board, Tar Creeper.
Yeah.
But otherwise, what are you going to go for here? Like, just Halfiend, and then you're just definitely going to be discarding everything.
Nah, I think the Crystal Weaver's right. She's going all in on this Halfiend now, and the Crystal Weaver does trade with the Tar Creeper on board. But Mitsuhide does have the ability to clear off that Crystal Weaver directly with SI and Shadow Step, or could just go for Cobalt Scalebane and build up the most resilient board possible.
So you could coin SI7 agent, send it towards the Halfiend, bounce it back, send it towards the Halfiend again, and then put both damage on the board and your face to kill off the Halfiend and discard all of your opponent's hand. Okay.
That'd be pretty sick.
I quite like it, Gora. If you are given the opportunity to discard 4 cards from your opponent's hand when there isn't a Malchezaar's Imp on the board, I think you might go for it. Yes.
Go with the hit first, because this is always going to happen.
Yes,
Discard cards.
All of them.
Can't listen to the heart of the cards if you have no cards.
Yeah, and this is what you were talking about earlier, Cora. The fun for Mitsuhide of just discarding everything is quite clear. Well, not in his face, but I mean, maybe on his on the inside.
We can imagine.
Yeah.
And there is all of VS's hand now gone. Too little, too late, Malchezaar's Imp.
Oh dear,
and she's already drawn Patches, so those are 2 horrible draws. Both of her Doom Guards are gone now. How does she come back into this one?
Yeah, both Doom Guards gone. I guess having something survive into 7 and maybe a Bone Mare being able to be put onto something, but I don't know if you're going to be able to get there. These are such weak cards being put onto the board now. And Rogue, so good at removal.
Yeah, that really is the advantage of the Rogue, is leveraging the cheap removal in the early turns, like the Backstab, like the SI. That is what the Warlock does not have, right? Warlock can do early aggression better than just about anything, but Rogue does early removal better than just about anything.
And a free Scalebane onto the board always feels amazing as well. That's going to make this SI7 agent a nice juicy 6-2. And whiff after whiff for VS at the moment, because she's discarded most of her good cards. I guess at least that stops some of this pressure.
It's just about the best that she could hope for right now, but there's a Bone Mare that will come out on curve for Mitsuhide.
So yeah, use SI7 agent here, plus your hero power to clear off one of the 2/3s, kill the other one off with your Scalebane, and then you're still sending 6 damage to face. Looking good for Mitsuhide. He was very happy after yesterday's win, being able to qualify for the knockout stages. And of course, a win here for Celestial, although it may become a little bit complicated and come down to net score if Evolution were to win as well. I think they'll be more than happy to guarantee themselves one of those top 3 seeds, rather than potentially falling to maybe a 4th seed if we saw an Alliance victory.
Yeah, Celestial has really turned things around for themselves in the last couple of days. It's been a pleasure getting to watch their performance, and Mitsuhide is going to wrap this one up. That may be the quickest 3 games that we've had in this tournament.
Honestly, like, that's how these games can go, right? If you get that early start, if you get Halfiend on the board and then your opponent can discard 4 cards as well, then they take that opportunity, and that is the downside of playing that variant of the Zoo. yes, okay, it's worked really well against other Zoo decks. The victories that Baiza has picked up have been phenomenal. But sometimes it has to go sour at some point. And unfortunately now RNG find themselves 2-1 down. And bear in mind, this is an RNG who are 5-1 in the tournament so far. An RNG that beat Evolution as well. Can they bring this one back?
RNG, they're in first place. They, right now, are just fighting for some preferential seeding. But even still, even if they do lose this one, Celestial ends up on top. And then RNG has to play against Evolution again. First up in the next stage of the tournament, they've already beat Evolution. They've beat pretty much everybody. So I don't know that they really are worried about much at all here. And it is going to be KylinS coming in. He's going to have to win 2 in a row, but first he needs to take out this rogue. Their own rogue has been banned. He also has played the mage.
And the mage goes really well into this rogue as well. I mean, we can see that both from previous matchups and statistics. They've beaten rogue twice with it. Even Evolution actually banned the mage away from RNG and KylinS because they knew it would do fairly well against their aggressive lineup, and instead then forced them to change their strategy ever so slightly. So KylinS gets the chance once again to take down a rogue here. But the question is he going to make it 3 out of 3 against rogues for himself?
Well, like you said, it's very likely that he can win this one. The mage deck just lines up so well against the rogue, so he wins this one, I'd say majority of the time, but then we're looking to game number 5, and Tom60229 would be coming in with whatever counter deck he wants up against this mage, and then things could be a little bit sticky for RNG, but it is going to be KylinS trying to get the win up against the rogue first and foremost. If he does miss on the effective board clear of the deck like Doomsayer and Frost Nova, if he doesn't get the early curve, then Mitsuhide can just run over the mage, but we see KylinS isn't missing anything today. He's got a beautiful start.
He's King K for a reason. The mana when being picked up is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, to be fair, he didn't really need it. Having the Doomsayer in hand, that was going to be able to clear off the early board from Mitsuhide anyway, but that might change the game plan ever so slightly for KylinS. I guess he's just going to wait and see what comes from Mitsuhide, but that's the patches.
Okay, this one is going to be a little bit one-sided, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you don't get the early pressure against a mage, you can really struggle. Pyrus does help. At least that's something that can go onto the board on 2, and that is going to be value for the rest of the game.
Maybe it'll fill out some awkward turns in the middle there that Mitsuhide wouldn't otherwise have something to play. But when the mage has better early game than the tempo rogue, you know that something went horribly, horribly wrong.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure. And usually it's just bad drawing as well. I have really enjoyed this mage. I know we still haven't seen the 30th card, and I know there's been a debate.
Is it Frostlich Jaina?
Falk gave me a very definitive no, he doesn't think it is, because there is still a Frostbolt gap there in RNG's lineup.
It's got to be Frostbolt.
And yeah, you look at this deck list and you say, yep, okay, it's definitely more of a hybrid, closer to a freeze. Closer to the Gunther kind of style that we've seen as well, rather than having that control Frostlich Jaina style.
Yeah, I would think that the Pyroblast replaced Frostlich Jaina, and then we're looking at that second Frostbolt for the 30th card. But RNG has kept us on our toes over the last 6 days.
The funny thing is, there's 2 Frostbolts right there, so now we know for sure.
Hey, it's Frostbolt.
We can finally answer that question. And I guess Darroch will be happy because there was a, I wouldn't say an argument, but a discussion with a couple of players, and Darroch was trying to say, I don't think Frostlich Jaina's in there, and there was a player saying, ah, cool. Of course it is. It's definitely in there. So hats off to Darroch. He was right for once.
Whew.
I say for once. He's right. A lot more than I am.
Ooh, spicy.
I mean, if I don't get to cast with him and insult him in person, I should at least do it whilst he's listening,
That's
right?
true.
Yeah, great.
We hope he's listening. He may still be in makeup. Who knows?
Yeah, he needs a lot.
Mitsuhide going through the motions, and Dan Gaskin just throwing the shade.
Yeah, I'm going to stop, because I really like Darroch. Anyway, back to the game.
You really like him?
Yeah, I really, really like him.
You like him?
So Mitsuhide does have Samurai Chain Gang, which I guess works pretty well here. Next turn, he's got Celsi Captain into that patches. That's the good thing, that even if you do draw patches, there is a later opportunity where you can combine it with the Celsi Captain, where you don't lose too much value.
KylinS just has so much removal in hand. His own development is kind of lacking until Firelands Portal. but he can just play the cleanup game pretty effectively. Mitsuhide may even want to hold on to that Patches to have an activator for Vile Spine Slayer, just to have that guaranteed kill onto a Doomsayer going forward.
Picking up another big 8-drop actually isn't the worst thing in the world for Mitsuhide, because, I mean, typically your opponent does just remove boards anyway. So after you play Lich King, if they remove everything, at least you have something else that's going to be plopped onto the board that is a big threat.
It's a big threat, but it's a big threat that works against everything that your deck stands for, right? Anomalous just blows up the board when he dies.
But I mean, if you're using it as a single minion, right?
Yeah, it's just a singular threat, I suppose. But if you're already in that position where you've lost board control and you're resorting to playing down an Anomalous, that feels pretty bad. And KylinS, rightfully so, will identify that it is turn 5, so Vile Spine is available, but only alongside Backstab or Shadow Step. He's going to try and get some value out of the Doomsayer while he still can.
How badly does Mitsuhide want to keep this board? Because with Leroy Jenkins, you can keep it if you want, but what do you value more? A 2-3 being left on the board and not passing a turn? Or just a simple dagger up here?
You give initiative over to KylinS. But going into turn 5, even with coins still in hand for KylinS, there's not a lot that the mage can really do. You've seen Arcanologist, you've seen Mana Worm, there's probably not minion development in hand. So I think this is okay. I like holding on to the Leroy.
I very much like holding on to the Leroy. A, because later on, Leroy into Shadow Step into Leroy is a lot of burst damage that you might need just to get through Freeze the kind of control mage. Burn mage, one of the mages. It's a something mage. But
It's a mage.
Yeah.
We know that for sure.
It's a mage. KylinS hovering over the Firelands portal for a while, but of course you can't use that just yet, buddy. Maybe we'll see the Pyros making another appearance onto the board.
It's by far the strongest minion that Mitsuhide can put on the board, and that's Washburglar. Really, really coming through, providing a lot of necessary value for Mitsuhide in this game because his early start was pretty weak, and he really would have been in a poor position if he had to also miss turn 2 and turn 6.
So you could fireball away this Pyros if you want, but that is some of your burn you are sacrificing.
Yeah,
I guess if you're really tempted, you could just Meteor it. Because that is removal. What are the big targets you're waiting for? Of course, Lich King is a possibility because I can see it, but will KylinS be thinking about that? You would think so, as it is the biggest target in your opponent's deck, aside from just something that's been bone-mad.
And, of course, once Pyros dies, there is the 10-mana 10/10 version of Pyros available, so you do kind of have to wonder if you want to keep Meteor around for that.
But imagine if this Pyros wasn't here for Mitsuhide. If he didn't pick it up from the start, then this actually would have been a more comfortable game for KylinS, but already you can see on his face that he's struggling with this turn, and he's saying, well, can I afford to waste a fireball here?
Maybe he's sweating a little bit. Getting rid of 6 damage means that his reach is significantly lower, but with Alexstrasza still in the deck, if you offensively use Alexstrasza, then you require a lot less burn. And there's a Pyroblast in the deck for KylinS, so I like the Fireball here.
Yeah, you've got the Pyroblast, you've got Firelands portals, you still have that reach across a couple of turns, so it's not necessary to keep it back. And I feel like just removing it off the board and stopping your opponent from having the initiative is very important.
Especially since you don't have a Doomsayer to go alongside Blizzard, so Meteor is just a better tool at cleaning up a mid-sized board than Blizzard is. And that does look like what Mitsuhide is going to have to go for this turn, potentially just the Captain, the Fledgling, and the Patches, because he's still 1 turn off from playing that Lich King. And he needs to continue to develop pressure somehow, even if it's with just a ragtag bunch of minions.
And of course, positioning doesn't really matter going into Meteor anyway, because they're both 3 health, but still doing the right positioning anyway, I guess. If something like a... Wait, what is it? That deals damage on both sides as well. Isn't there a rogue card that you can get?
Betrayal.
Yeah. Is there any way you could, like... Nah, there's not even that.
I mean, there's Betrayal, there's Cone of Cold. It's always...
It's just good practice, right?
See, it's always good to put your weakest minions in the middle, but then you look at, like, Scourge or Garrosh, and you want to put the stronger one in the middle, and...
Yeah, things are going to change.
It varies.
With the new expansion as well.
Yeah, there's no consistency anymore.
Crushing walls. That's going to change everything.
Positioning.
the game has changed.
What a hassle.
Still the same game, still Hearthstone, but...
And KylinS did end up going with that Blizzard because it is effective enough on this board, and there are going to be significantly bigger threats that only the Meteor in hand now can clean up. Ooh, Frostmourne. That's just 15 damage.
Yeah, see, now this Meteor is going to be used, and if nothing's put on the board from KylinS, Mitsuhide may be tempted by the 8-drop here. It's a threat that your opponent has to answer. They've just used their Meteor as well. You're not too worried about the Death Rattle effect because you've got nothing on the board anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Anomalous, he's got 8 attack. It's that, or I think Frostmourne and start doming KylinS. But you'd probably rather use that Frostmourne as an afterthought once you've gotten some minion damage through, which Mitsuhide really has not this game.
I guess, like, 6 health isn't great because you know your opponent can remove it with something like a Fireball, but
yeah,
you are forcing some removal from your opponent, so I guess that's the upside.
And actually, I wonder how this works. So of course, if you fire lands and then ping, Anomalous kills off the Fire Lands minion, but if you ping and then Fire Lands, does Anomalous Death Rattle first, or does Fire Lands summon first?
I imagine the Death Rattle happens first. I'm not going to say that with 100% clarity because I'm very often wrong. But usually it's the effect on board happens first and then the summon effect happens afterwards.
My Anomalous experience is low.
You are well renowned for being an arena player though, so I'd imagine that must have turned up at least once.
Yes, but you still get 3 options for legendaries when you get a legendary choice in arena, so it's Anomalous plus 2 others. And usually you're going to take either of the 2 others, even if it's like net pig.
So with the pickup of Shatter, it now means that he doesn't even have to use the Firelands Portal as removal because next turn he can just Frost Nova and shatter that bad boy, and then anything that Mitsuhide has put on the deck as well is going to get wiped out immediately.
But that means this is a great turn for the Frostmourne.
Oh yeah.
Mitsu's going to lose the Tar Creeper, but the Anomalous gets through for 8 damage, and suddenly KylinS block is in danger of being popped next turn.
It definitely is.
Even just from hand it can be, with Leaoh Coldblood and the SI7 agent.
Wow, so even if the Frostbolt is used by KylinS to stop the 5 damage, maybe leaving that anomaly up was anomalous.
Well, he is an anomaly.
Yeah.
You would never normally see him. But he's a big dude. He's a cool card. It's just...
To be fair, when it was announced...
doesn't fit in any mage deck.
It was like one of my... I was really excited about it when it was first ever announced. And then
it's very, very cool.
I was so disappointed when nothing happened.
Just, you know, not good. Is he an elemental?
Quite possibly.
I think he is, yeah, because if you Frostlich and then you Anomalous, it's like...
Nuts.
Reno heal. It's a cool card.
So sending the damage to face straight away, so...
Can KylinS close out this game in 2 turns? Because Mitsu pops block this turn. Pops it on 5, which is... Oh, well, no, he could pop it on 1 if he goes Leaoh Coldblood and then hits in with Frostmourne.
That's a really interesting turn as well for KylinS there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you could have just Frost Nova... That is a Shatter, right? I'm not being
It is a Shatter, yes.
That would have just cleared the board, and then you could have used Firelands Portal to face and had a minion on board that would have contested something.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yes, but leaving the Anomalous up means that Mitsuhide essentially can't develop any minions.
True.
Without them dying.
Yep. And I suppose KylinS is concerned about that 10-10 Pyros that could be returning to the board at any point.
Yeah. Plus, KylinS has just another Frost Nova in hand. So the Anomalous isn't going to be getting through for any more damage. You might as well just threaten the removal of anything that Mitsuhide plays. But he is going to have the block pop this turn at 1, which means the SI7 agent in hand is going to threaten lethal every turn going forward.
Mitsuhide saying, right, well, I'm just hoping my opponent doesn't have lethal of his own here. 15 damage required for KylinS.
That's a tall order. Especially since 1 Fireball has already been used, so I don't even think it's possible.
That Ice Block really helps. You can now ice block. You can use Medivh's Valet as well to send damage towards face. You can send at least 2 more from board. Frostbolt as well. I mean, that's 8 damage you can put towards your opponent. That means you're putting yourself in some decent outs.
Now you're putting yourself on.
There. Primordial Glyph.
That's more than you had before you drew Ice Block. At the very least, it's giving you some chance.
I guess you Frostbolt now because you say they might not be able to actually pop my block here.
Absolutely. This Frostbolt's going face. Ooh. Or not. Okay, so if you put Mitsuhide down to 9...
Right, I think that was just...
Is that better than just Frostbolting face this turn?
No, you 100% Frostbolt that turn because it then means your opponent can't get lethal from their from their face, and it forces them to have an SI7 agent. Mitsuhide reveals that it doesn't matter anyway, and actually it was just wrong from KylinS. But yeah, even his reaction there was like, no, I should have used the Frostbolt. That was a little bit silly.
But now Fireball off the top.
Firelands Portal off the top.
1 damage off lethal.
Imagine if you'd Frostbolted last turn.
You would have missed the 1 damage from the hero power. And his block still would have been popped, so it would have been irrelevant. But if this isn't a minion that deals damage, that's just game. And Mitsuhide manages to pull it off. 3 games to 1. That's another victory in the books for Team Celestial. Now they're going to be 5-2. RNG also at 5-2. Celestial have gone from the bottom of the barrel all the way up to the top. And I think, does this put them in first place? Because now in the head-to-head, they've defeated RNG.
Yep, they have a better head-to-head than RNG. So at the moment, they go into knockouts in first seed. However, if Evolution were to win their game, then all 3